Ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues and listeners, here we are again. Another week has gone fast. I've heard somebody saying when they were young and at school, a week seemed such a long time. Well, my God, it only seems like a couple of days at the moment. So, Steve, it's always nice. The one good thing about the week going quicker is that I get to see you again at the weekend. So lovely to see you.
So that's in addition to all of the sessions during the week, Chris. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Good to see you, Chris. Happy Saturday.
Well, happy Saturday. And I was just, for those that are listening, we've just had a little join and chat, and the two lads have been watching cricket, and I've got to admit, a game without physical contact for me is not something that I love to watch. But I've now found out why it's called a test, because it's exactly that, to watch it, Steve. Holy mother of Moses. Anyhow,
well,
just my personal opinion, so I've probably divided the country. So the next point I'd like to bring up to divide the rest, Steve, a man who speaks his mind, what do you think of this Harry and Meghan rubbish?
Well, if it's a test for you to watch a test match, then I suspect that that a 5-day test probably is at the extremis of your patience, which is what I'm watching right now. We're on day 3 on the third session, England India, just to sort of get that in there. And just before coming on this, we were 106 for 6, so we got 50. I think England need about 54 runs out of 50 over, so I think that should be perfectly doable. And if it's not, we've got far bigger problems. But then again, on the third test, we were all out on day 2, so anything is possible. But anyway, we live in hope. I'm hoping to get straight back to cricket after this very important diversion to record this podcast. Anyway,
thank you very much for clearing that one up, Steve. And I'll let you get back to your silly mid on, or whatever it is, or silly mid off, as soon as possible.
Thanks, Chris. Harry and Meghan, we're starting there, are we? That's a rather well, I think it could be rather tempestuous discussion, dependent on which side of the pond you're from. I suspect that most of our listeners are on our side of the pond. That's the eastern side of the Atlantic, for those unawares. And I suspect there is growing frustration amongst many people about how this is playing out. Not least the royal family themselves. I suspect that it is going to erupt significantly tomorrow night, as those in the US watch the CBS interview. Those of us in the UK, which I'm not, to be clear. Some just think vicariously I am, because I tend to work UK working hours. Well, Asian working hours with some clients, and then UK working hours with others. So that generally means a 16-hour day every day of the week. Yeah. But look, I mean, everybody's entitled to their privacy, Chris. There's a simple view that I have, though. But when you're funded by the taxpayer, there are some expectations that come with it. We expect our politicians to behave, above what's the right word? Without putting themselves into disrepute. We expect our members of the royal family, to whom we pay and we fund, to be given elements of access to their lives, not in intricate details, but certainly I think it's rather ironic that these two young lovebirds have flown the coop, flown the safety and security of the Windsor family in the UK to go to the what I think is a bit like Disneyland, west coast of the US and California, a place I am not keen on at all. Stiff British upper lip would mean that I generally would hold back my full feelings on the place. But it is rather ironic, Chris, to then throw themselves into the limelight in such a way that they have done. I do find that rather ironic. But anyway, good luck to them. I wish them no ill. But you can probably guess on which side of the fence I sit on this argument.
I just think, well, I can't put it as eloquently as that, Steve. I just think it's absolute ridiculous. 1 minute they don't want anybody prying in. Now they're going to air their dirty washing. Yeah. It's ridiculous with everything that's going on. Bad timing, bad idea, and it's going to be a bad fallout. And I think it shows a real naivety and a real sort of sense of or immaturity, if you like. On what the expectations of roles are, and it just goes to show that a Z-lister like Meghan Markle, who was a Z-list actress, I understand, in the US,
thinks that being a princess is actually sort of the fairy tale like examples that may well have existed, a century ago, but certainly don't today. We expect our pound of flesh, and we expect royals to work work for the taxpayer dollars that they deservedly get. But they've got to turn out for it. She didn't want to turn out. She's now facing all sorts of allegations as well that I suspect would never have come to light, Chris, had this debacle with this Oprah Winfrey Bear-all, interview come about. I suspect that these bullying and harassment allegations that are now coming out of the palace would the palace would never have wanted that to be the case, surely, would they? I mean, it's only because his interviews now come up that this is now coming to the surface.
Yeah, but I just hope again now it doesn't get into a tit for tat. But the only point I'm trying to make is there's so many more important things going on. We've had the NHS debate here now about the pay rise, or is it actually a pay rise? But there's more important things going on. And when you look at the amount of money that's being charged now for the advertising, for each bloody 90 seconds or whatever, it's ridiculous, Steve. It just puts things. Yeah. It puts things in the wrong context of what's going on today. So, without further ado, silly business. Okay, we move now. We move on. Now, Steve, something I wanted to just a nice bit of news as well. I got I watched the post there from an old friend and colleague in several companies, Aitor Bajo. He put a lovely little reference there to how Saudi's new order book is stacking up. So they're looking to bring on 70 new aircraft. And also during the week, we posted a very nice podcast with Teddy Zebitz, which is flying away. So there's huge amounts of interest in Saudi. And I think that's going to be the case for a long time to come at the moment, whether it's tourism.
I wouldn't disagree. Yeah, I mean, I didn't see I have to confess, I didn't watch the whole interview with Teddy, Chris. But I did recognize the office in which he was recording the podcast from.
Yes.
A spot that you and I used to spar across the desk now and then, or across the room. In good humor and for good reason, of course, to deliver the best for our client and employer. But look, it's nice to see Saudi. I mean, I think Saudi Arabia, as we know, largest domestic market in the GCC, 28 million people population, but by a country mile it runs away in population terms. A very young crowd. I think 60% of the population, maybe more, up northwards of 60% of the population is below 40, Chris. So that's a large young population. And we know, Chris, from having lived there, that the Saudis love to travel. Now, their wings have been clipped a little bit with international border restrictions because, they tend to enjoy overseas travel and getting out of the kingdom and going exploring, whether that be for leisure or for study. A lot of university, a lot of the smart young kids, travel overseas for that. I have to confess, it was rather pleasant at home near where I live. It's very near the King's Road, and therefore. I didn't have the blast of Lamborghinis or Ferraris or whatever else racing up and down the King's Road or Brompton Road in an evening, which was rather pleasant. But nonetheless, that's because they decamped to London for a while. But look, Saudis. I mean, I think Saudi domestically will come out strong, Chris, because it's got that large population that move around. The other thing is, I think the kingdom is very well geographically placed. To pick up a lot of that south-north or north-south traffic, from down in, the southern Africa up to northern Europe and beyond, and then also east-west as well. Of course, the hub is very well strategically located. We know that a lot of work's been done to the King Abdulaziz Airport.
Yeah.
And of course, not just has King Abdulaziz Airport expanded with a new terminal, because we've seen SAL, expand its presence quite significantly across the kingdom, develop the road feeder service network. I was reading a lot about the RFS network the other day, which is great to see. So connecting some of the offline ports, where they don't have the justification for a flight, but certainly do from a cargo perspective. That's kind of an interesting way to now sort of get intermodal connectivity as well through the port, which I've seen more of happening in the kingdom. So I do think there's a lot of hope there and positivity. I'm always very positive about the kingdom, as I know you are, Chris. And I wish them very well. But I mean, some massive challenges still in getting the show back on the road. But Saudi, I think, as well as others in the kingdom, will be well placed to capitalize on that when the market recovers.
Yeah, no, they're doing well. They're doing well. Now they got agreements. They got the flights in from China into Liège, and now they're doing really well. Teddy's.
I think the other thing politically, Chris, they've got rid of the blockade, and the Qatar situation seems to have quietened down, and that sort of political affray has mellowed slightly, which is also very helpful. I mean, geopolitically for all of us, I think, in terms of stability across the region and beyond.
Yeah, plus the things that they're doing, creating new cities, but also as a country, Steve, once it opens up properly to tourism, people are going to get such a surprise at the diversity and the difference in the country. It's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I was very fortunate. I suspect that you were, to do some traveling around the kingdom, and there were some very ancient ruins. The name escapes me right now. Madin Saleh, which is older than the ancient city of Petra. In Jordan, I mean, it's beautiful, and of course it's untouched, completely untouched, unscathed, totally protected. It is pretty special, of course, and there's an awful lot more of that around. I think there's a lot of strong good hope, and we're building these new cities in places like Neom and others. I think Salam, our producer there, has forgotten to put himself on mute, Chris. I think he's.
So yeah, we can hear a little bit of chat there in the background. Salam.
Chat in the background from Salam.
Cricket. Salam.
Yeah.
We can hear you in the background, lovely boy. You're not playing cricket.
Sorry about that.
There we go. We got a little technical glitch from our technical expert.
Or not, as the case may be.
Yeah. P45, Salam. P45, son. Anyhow, moving on. That's why
we'll continue, Chris.
Cricket is a bad influence, mate. It's a distractor.
We'll continue like that never happened. We'll just sort of, I don't think anybody noticed that, did they? We got away with that one, Chris. But
as always, mate. Yeah, but no, seriously, Saudi, great future, great opportunity. But people the world is getting a smaller place. It's going to be even smaller now when we come out of this, because people are going to want to see so much of it. Great place to go, great place to see. Very different, but it's a tick box exercise, for those that love to see different parts of the world. Right, Saudi. Now, moving on, Steve. The industry, okay, without a shadow of a doubt, safest way to travel, safety and security are always there at the forefront. However, there's been a few little issues now that, are raising a few eyebrows. So some of the engine issues on the aircraft, there was another aircraft now at a safety landing. And whether people like it or not, people will start asking questions about, how many aircraft have been grounded, the maintenance, what's happening, what sort of checks coming back in. And now what's going to happen when the bounce back better really starts to hit, because people are going to be under so much pressure. So something that I think is an important area we should touch on just as a conversation piece, and again, to stay away from cricket, but people, process and performance, the three-pronged pressure points that are going to come now as soon as this rebounds, because it's going to go crazy. Even here now, just this morning, I was looking at an article about how the domestic staycation prices have gone through the roof now, even from 3 weeks ago. So every time there's an announcement, there's another little injection of optimism. And now we got the 17th of May as the big dates here for international travel restrictions to be lifted. Everybody I'm speaking to, all they want to do now is get away for a unique vacation. Some of the exotic and I would sort of the more expensive, but the real high end, they're inundated, Steve. So people are going for this life experience, but I think they're going to want to do it at least once a year now, moving on, because they want to make memories. So for our business and moving ahead, I think the big challenges are going to come with retrenching the people, upskilling them, cross-skilling them, new skilling them, reskilling them, whatever you want to talk about, because people are going to have to get used to living with a greater degree of digitization, automation, and more that they should embrace it now and look at different things rather than have a barrier up against it. That's my opinion on the people side. Processes now need to be a lot more simpler. So get rid of all the complexity that we had before and the unnecessary procedures whereby people don't even look at the damn things. All they do is tick box in a manual. And then, of course, customers are going to want to see performance.
Well, it's like that conditions of carriage question, when you book your flight, have you read the conditions? And absolutely.
Cargo now. Sorry, Steve. Something else I don't want to put too much in your mind whilst you've got the clarity of cricket there. But something else is the e-commerce now. And it's almost turning into an epidemic of undeclared dangerous goods in e-commerce and post. And there seems to be little appetite to start putting specific restrictions to level up the playing field.
Yeah, look, I think these problems existed before this massive spike in e-commerce activity. So I think what was really going on, Chris, is we sort of accepted. I say that word not wantingly, but there was a degree of acknowledgement, let's say, that there was an element of risk that is acceptable. And what we do in our business is we always try to manage out and mitigate as much of that risk as practicably and reasonably and commercially possible. Not forgetting the commercial aspect there, because actually the safest thing, of course, is not to fly at all, and not to move the truck from A to B. That's the safest thing, but of course that doesn't make much commercial sense. I don't think that the MO hasn't changed in that regard. I think what has changed, what is very clear, is that the sheer volume has increased the risk profile quite significantly. I would question whether or not. Now, some we know have, because Chris, you and I have been having these conversations with our own clients for our own purposes, but or for the client's purpose rather, not for our own purpose, but the client's purposes. But we also know, I suspect, that there's an awful lot of refreshment that is required, not the Asahi refreshment type that I've got next to me here, but refreshing your risk matrix and refreshing your understanding and your mitigation measures and your control measures and all of that, because of the spike in volume, or because the different profile or the demographics of the commodities that we accept has changed. I think that is probably a very helpful and worthwhile exercise for a lot of the handlers, the terminal operators, and even the forwarders. I mean, the forwarders are often our biggest challenge, Chris, to be honest with you. I mean, they are they can either be really, really super, excellent and deliver to the airline, consistently, robust compliance and conformance. But of course, there are the unscrupulous ones that cause the airline the same problem, and it's the same forwarders or the same agents that are involved in usually the undeclared dodgy shipments, I must say, as you probably well know as much as anybody else, or certainly more so than me. So I do think there's probably something to say. Look, let's go back. There's nothing wrong in kind of where we are today. We have to accept that the profile of shipments has changed, possibly forever. I would assume, Chris. I mean, I don't think people that have got very used to ordering their electronic devices or their lithium-ion filled, electronics at home will change their habits now because we come back out of lockdown. I don't see that. I think this is a trend now that's here to stay. The retail trends are probably going to continue in this way. I mean, God help our high streets and these massive shopping centres and these landlords with massive properties and huge capital expenditure as a result. But anyway, we have tipped the balance. The e-commerce thing will, I think, only get bigger as we see people here. I was out at KLIA, Kuala Lumpur Airport this week, doing some work for a client, and a massive Alibaba facility there. I mean, just enormous. I don't know how big it is, but it's at least 40,000-50,000 square meters in size. I mean, it is just ginormous. And of course, a lot of that stuff will go through there. So I would just say and urge our colleagues, really, Chris, is to sort of, just take it, take pause for breath, maybe refresh some of the risk, your risk profile, risk matrices that you've historically developed. Reassess what is likely to, come if not from now, but going forward, and put in place now the right measures, the right robust control practices and processes to make sure that we get this right, and heaven forbid that we don't come unstuck.
100%. I was talking with Michael White yesterday at CNS, and he was really emphasising the same points. That something really does have to be done now about this process, and especially leveling up the playing field, because the upstream screening and responsibilities can't be taken away from anybody. We're all part of the same supply chain. We're all part of the same process. That accountability doesn't change as it moves from step to step. So everybody's got to start to realise this. And another issue that obviously, now that we're looking at the challenges, commercial is under so much pressure now. So there needs to be the cash, make it flow nicely. But one of the issues now is the volumes and the speed, because people are going to expect more speed and more transparency. And using the NHS as an example, and the same in every country, the big issue with the pandemic was not to overrun the medical system, not to overrun the hospitals, because they can't cope. Well, the same thing's been happening in our business, whether it be cargo or whether it be passenger, for years. Passenger has managed to slow it down a little bit, but it's always that last minute pressure, that last minute rush.
Because there's not been that many passengers, thankfully.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
That's wrong. Not thankfully. You understand what I mean, Chris?
Yeah.
In that regard. Yeah.
But the thing with the passenger, Steve, the biggest breakthrough there was, and I was probably one of the worst. I would always get to an airport just in time, have a chat, say, look, don't worry, I can run to the gate and everything. And you try and sweet talk the person who's checking you in, and that for them, or you bore the living daylights out of them, for them to say, look, here you go, there's a boarding pass. If you make it, you make it. And you've got to run like a lunatic, try and get through it. Well,
I've seen you miss a flight though, Chris. It didn't work every time.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. But nothing works every time, mate. But one in God knows how many. But anyhow, you really hit me with a spin bowl there, didn't you? But anyhow, one of the things that happens is now when you put your boarding pass there to initially go through security, you stop because you haven't got the time. Cargo doesn't have that, and also now with the rush,
yeah.
I just think now is the time to step back, balance, and start to do things so that they're done with sustainability in mind, safety in mind, and also with people's capabilities in mind. Because one of the things that's going to be a big casualty now is the frontline guys and girls. They haven't had so much training, they haven't had so much support, they've got various pressures now coming back. And now on top of that, they're suddenly going to be expected to go from a nice run in the country, to a full-on sprint at the end of a marathon. And there's going to be fallout if those things aren't taken and taken seriously. That's just my opinion. Another thing, Stephen, okay, digitization. So the one thing about the pandemic, it's probably sped up everything 10 years into one. Not a bad thing, but it's how people are relating to it. So one example is, I don't know if you've seen this Amazon grocers or this Amazon supermarket where there's no tills, there's no nothing. Okay, well stocked, good quality. You go in and it calculates what you've taken out, what you've got, scans it automatically off your card. Now there's already, this is terrible. You're taking away jobs, etc., etc. Yes, but if people look at it differently, there are a different type of jobs that can be associated with that particular business model. So I think people have got to start embracing things more and really start to hunger for this change so that everybody gets into a better place rather than keep holding on to things which will eventually go in any case.
Well, two things to respond to that. You're absolutely right. I think you're probably, your batting average has increased a little bit there. Get a few more in there. But the the first point I'd say in response is there has been a number of examples in our industry over the years where, introducing things like self-service check-in or self-service bag drops self-service boarding gates, has had a bit of a damp reception from those representing the employee groups, particularly the trade union, because they say exactly as you painted the picture there. Oh, you're taking our jobs away. How dare you? This is terrible. You don't need as many of us. You're absolutely right. We will not need as many as you to do the function that you are doing today. What we will want you to do, however, is to coach and corral and educate the customer, on the changes that we're asking of them, and actually take this. You remember those check-in desks, Chris, that agents felt very secure sitting behind. It was like the little comfort blanket. You can't come behind my. And if you got the odd passenger that got a bit bossy and tried to get up to the, hey, get out of my space. Whoa, they felt very protected by that. When you take that desk away and you ask them to go out front and speak to the customer and engage with the customer and, hi sir, how are you there? You're all right? Yeah, perfect. Madam, you need a little bit of help here. Can I? So what you're then doing is you're actually looking for a different set of skills. Those are different skills, Chris, that not everybody has. Exactly. And I have to say that I came up, we didn't quite come up stumps on this one, but we didn't even get that.
I got it, mate. I got it. I'm just trying to. I got it. Of course, I got it. Yeah. All right. That's your first 6.
Look, we didn't quite come up stumps with them, but we did have to work with the employees themselves, with the representative groups, with the supervisors, to re-skill and re-educate the staff on what was newly required. So it wasn't about actually just whipping the blanket away and saying you're no longer required. You are required, but the job now is different.
Yeah,
and that is very clear. I think the second thing is, I think the customers are. I mean, that Amazon example. If you look at aviation customers flying out of the UK now, anybody flying out of Star Alliance from Terminal 2 will know all about self-service. Anyone flying with EasyJet from Gatwick will know all about self-service. Anyone flying British Airways from Heathrow will know, mostly when it works at T5, will know often about self-service. And I think the customer is becoming far more attuned and in tune with innovation, technology, off-airport check-in, and self-service. And look, Chris, we had this in Waitrose 10 years ago when they introduced the self-checkout machine. Personally, I can't stand the bloody thing. Yeah. I like to load up. I'm happy to get in the line, and I load up on the conveyor because I like to have a chat with the fellow or the old dear that's sitting behind the counter. Much to my wife's sort of disgust. She said, can we get out of here? Can we hurry up and move on? But look, I do enjoy that engagement. And also, actually, when you're on your own or you're one person, it's not easy scanning your own items through that bloody system. So I'm therefore very supportive of taking it to the next level, which is what Amazon have done, which is taking the whole thing away. So you can fill your books as much as you like, but you don't have to be put off by it by scanning the whole lot at the end, which is the problem. So when you make a person check in on a kiosk, they go, oh, that's all very well. Oh, but I've got to join the bloody line for the bag anyway. What's the bloody point? That's always been our problem in aviation. Well, actually, what we do is we make you not queue up for the bag. Either we encourage you not to bring a bag through commercial incentives, or if you do, we ensure that there is no queue by introducing as many, providing you've got the footprint, the real estate, introducing as many self-service bag drops as practically possible to ensure that customers essentially come to the crease, and there's nobody sort of in front of them.
Yeah, but again, Steve, all of that's going to change as well, because there's going to be, especially with hotel links and everything, people will soon be able to get a test at the hotel, just like housekeeping in the morning. They'll be able to get their bag tagged, labeled. It'll be picked up. It'll go through. They'll get everything on their phone saying that their bag has been collected, that you're fit to fly. All of these things are happening. So what Amazon has just done is it's visually and business modeled sledged. It's done a bit of sledging just to see what's out there. A little bit of challenge. Sledging, Steve. Little cricket term.
So you've crossed the rope.
Yes. So it's given a little bit of, do you know what I mean? It's given that little bit of a challenge.
No, but I do think that you see, there's the halfway house, Chris. There's that kind of awkwardness, which is, well, I'll do a little bit of self-service, but then I'll have people again. Then I'll do a little bit of self-service. So let's do the whole thing self-service, or let's do the whole thing in an automated fashion. I think you're much more likely to increase the uptake or the conversion with your customers then to bring them on this journey with you. But I don't think Amazon will have problems in adopting that, because look at how many. If you just think how many people have downloaded the Amazon app that didn't have it before before the pandemic.
No, it's beautiful. They've extended their own personal boundaries, which is incredible.
Well, you're going after a ferret now, Chris.
Yeah, but there you go. There you go. It just keeps me on the ball, son. No, but it's.
Look, I'll tell you what you need to do after this is you need to get on to Test Match Special and listen to Michael Vaughan. And I don't know if it's who's on with him, but it's good. It's good humor. If you don't enjoy cricket, the Test Match Special is good listening. You don't have to watch 5 days of cricket to listen to it also.
Yeah, no, I think
it's on Radio 4, unsurprisingly.
No, well, I'll give it a try. I remember his uncle Frankie. But anyhow, getting back to this particular challenging issue and people's mindset, Steve, the pressures that people are going to be under now, airports, everybody, because even with some of the positive news, so Lufthansa was coming out, saying how many aircraft it's reducing. So, and Lufthansa came out with some good figures there. That the numbers of staff that they've had to release, so 20%. I mean, the numbers are pretty high to start with, but that's because of the Lufthansa way, which is very structured. But nonetheless,
I don't think they are, Chris. I don't think given how much traffic they've slumped below 50%, I don't think the numbers were high enough, frankly.
No, but they did say that there could be another another 10,000 on top of the 20,000.
Yeah, that's a problem though. I mean, that was unlike there's different ways to skin the cat, of course, but. British Airways recognized at the outset that they had to go deep, and they went deep, and they took everybody off that they sadly had to. I mean, I'm speaking sort of rather curtly about people's livelihoods, but they went deep. Obviously, it had a massive ripple effect, but it really helped them prop up their cash position. They didn't have to get a state bailout. Yes, they might have had some taxpayer funded or government backed loans, but not a state bailout in the way that Lufthansa has had to. It's protected as many jobs as they possibly could. They didn't give people false hope. In fact, British Airways, as you well know, could be accused of the opposite. And what they're now able to do is have sort of pilots or cabin crew on essentially 0-hour contracts, which I know is not ideal for people, but at least they can operate them as the business comes back and slowly increase the hours, to an acceptable sort of number. The converse is people like Air France and Lufthansa that sort of say, this is all a bit too hard. Our structure isn't allowed for this, or how much redundancy we're going to have to pay out. Yeah, well, look, yes, accept all of those arguments, all those points, and it might come back quick and it might come back good. But of course, you're giving false hope to people that are on a payroll that are not getting paid, that their job will come back. It's highly unlikely, and I think it's highly irresponsible to do that. It's even more irresponsible to do that when you're taking taxpayers' money, because the taxpayer is funding the existence of jobs that do not exist anymore. And that was to your point about that, the Amazon example there as a proxy, that I think that we are giving, that we have to be honest. The brutal, hard conversations are not easy. Yes. I think we've gone through most of the difficult conversations have been had by the clever, smart operators, but the laggards that are out there still and yet to have these conversations are the ones that actually have done, I suspect, Chris, more damage to their people and to their P&L for the greater than they have done. So fix the greater good.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there, Steve, and also that the point that even when you look at things now and what the cuts are and how expectation is, but to cut your fleet from 763 aircraft down to 650. Is a substantial cut, which everybody's doing. So now with aircraft that were so talked about and so much modifications with the stands and everything like the 380s, with people now shutting them down, that hub model, of feeding in and having in a bigger aircraft, do you know what I'm saying? Our industry, rightly or wrongly, people have to respond and do things to the surroundings and the influencing factors that are there at the time. And roughly every 8, 9, 10 years within our industry, we face a major knockback. But as a result of that, our industry learns, becomes more agile, and it actually speeds things up a bit.
Yeah.
The next pandemic if you will, and one that I think a lot of people haven't addressed well enough, or some of the organisations I've had experience with, is on the data protection and the hacking and the damages, you know. And
you're talking of the CETA issue this week, are you?
Well, see, but that's just one example, Steve, in a long list whereby, you know, the average Joe or Jane public would be sitting there thinking to themselves, "Good God, you know, we can put."
Well, you know, it's interesting. I got an email from 3 airlines.
Data.
I got an email from 3 airlines this week,
Yeah,
Chris.
me too. Same thing.
Yeah, I got one from Singapore Airlines. I got one from Malaysia Airlines. And I got one from Lufthansa.
Yeah.
And the email was basically, it was talking of the same issue. It was CETA had reported to them a data breach that extended back as far as 9 or 10 years ago. Malaysia Airlines said, we were a customer of CETA, you know, but that ended 5 or 6 years ago. Your data has been exposed, but it doesn't include credit cards, so don't worry, everything's fine. That was their kind of view of the world. Yeah. I don't know if I'm fine with that, but they seem to say that was fine. Sorry, it wasn't Lufthansa. The other one, it was Singapore Airlines and British Airways. Singapore Airlines said, we're not a CETA customer. We never have been. Good on them, I say.
But they share some information between.
But we share some information with the other 25 Star Alliance members, or 20 whatever it is, Star Alliance members, and one of those airlines is a CETA customer.
Yeah.
And therefore, your data has been breached as a result. And then British Airways emailed me to say, you have recorded travel historically on a partner airline of ours, and your data has been breached. So anyway, that was a bit of a hat trick there in terms of the effects of that. But look, data privacy, however you pronounce it, but data privacy, in my view, is becoming more and more critical as we become more and more digital. Yeah. I think it's for every business, even a small business like ours, Chris, at Skylight Aviation, we have a data protection officer. We are registered with the UK Information Commissioner's Office, the ICO. We pay a fee for that. We are therefore audited by the ICO to ensure we've got the right controls in place. And, you know, and that's because we exchange data with clients. We exchange personal data of those employed or contracted by us, et cetera, et cetera. So whatever size your business, as small as mine, or as large as Malaysia Airlines or Lufthansa, it is absolutely key that you've got these right controls in place. The one thing I would say is I'm less worried about, you know, my BA frequent flyer number or my Starline's gold frequent flyer being leaked to somebody. What I am more worried about is actually how much data people like Amazon and Google or Microsoft have on us, because that, I think, is far more interesting a topic than losing my frequent flyer number or somebody tapping in to use a few points in my BA Executive Club account.
But some of the development, advancements, and initiatives and innovation that could happen, people are going to be so much concerned about it because of breaches like this. So it's a silent virus, because people are thinking, well, how can that happen? And now they want us to get involved in more biometrics, and they want to give more detail. With the vaccinations and passports and stuff, which I know is a topic that you're very very vocal on, but it's a shame. So that's also got to start to be addressed now with the same sort of energy and enthusiasm as the vaccination. So they almost need a data vaccination, which is crazy, but that's something that needs to be done. Now, on something that we've spoken about, and I've actually been thinking about it, and I've been thinking about your point of view. Now, some of these airline ratings for, you know, COVID or testing or health testing, right? Yeah, I know. So I'm sorry about that. A little bit of a wide ball there, but nonetheless, let's recap.
That's only because I've been occupying the crease for so long on this issue, Chris.
Yes. Oh, yes. Well, I think we've ticked them all off now, nearly. But you know, the point I'm trying to make, and something that really I wasn't very impressed with as well, is when they talk about the airline ratings, and it is good, but the thing that gets me is the same thing that gets me with all accreditation and certifications and follow-up audits, is it's more of a damn tick box exercise than a challenge for somebody to pass. And that all that does is it devalues the whole purpose and the benefits. Now, the reason I'm saying that, Steve, is because on some of these, the seven categories or the 7 criteria, I think each one of them makes sense. So just to recap, so it's that the correct level of information about COVID is on the website, that there's face masks for passengers, PPE for crew, modified meal service, deep clean of aircraft, personal sanitization kit, and social distancing during onboarding. Didn't mention deboarding, because deboarding is probably the worst one. But anyhow, so all 7 make perfect sense. But to get the star ratings, it's 4 of the 7. Now, for me, I just think if anything makes sense,
who ticks the box, Chris?
Sorry?
Who confirms compliance and ticks that box?
That's the issue. Most of it is self-regulated. And so
it's an absolute bollocks, let me tell you. I just think this is non.
Sorry, the fact that we were using lots of cricketing terms, I'm assuming that is a well-known one. It's alien to me, Steve, but I appreciate, and I think I understand the term you were trying to use there. But it's such a shame now, because as we come out of this, and people are going to be expected to do things, the one biggest bugbear I've got is when somebody is told, we've got an audit, we've got to check, clean up, do this, do that. The poor staff are thinking to themselves, here we go again, just for the sake of it. If somebody's going to do something, do it because there's a commitment from the company. It's a culture that you want to cultivate, and it's for the right reasons, and do it properly.
Well, look, I mean, I was party to the discussion this week. I won't sort of labour the point on that one, because I think I've given that some good length already in previous. In previous. What I will say is I was party to a discussion this week, Chris, with a regulator that I won't reference, but they have come up completely unilaterally, Chris, totally, unilaterally of their own volition, with a set of cleaning requirements and deep disinfection requirements and specifications that are required between every turnaround. It was quite a, we had some discussion about what this was likely to mean. What were the other control measures that we could put in place to help our client avoid this? What was the impact of this on turnarounds? Obviously, we're trying to maximize utilization as much as we can. We're trying to maintain same crew on the same aircraft, so we don't have to extend duty days and we get crew getting off. But this process would it just came completely out of left field, and really was not in anything in any way aligned to what we'd expected in terms of what had been discussed before at IATA or ICAO or working group levels, or more broadly around our own regulators. So I do think there is a bit of, we know better in the regulatory space sometimes. And we know better because we've got low COVID loads in community. We want to protect, all of our people are now protected that work in the aviation space, or our frontliners, et cetera, or, we have vaccinated our population quite quickly. And I do think there's a risk, therefore, that this regulator is trying to support the commercial, dare I say, the commercial argument for their own airline, that they are state-owned. You have no surprise, and I shan't say much more, but otherwise I'll get myself into trouble. But it wouldn't be the first time, but certainly won't be the last. But I do think, Chris, that we do run the risk of this competitive advantage and this leg up being used by some regulators or governments to support their own national interests, rather than supporting the cause, rather than supporting the broader cause, which I think is, we all want to suppress the virus, we all want to get people vaccinated, we all want to travel again. Let's not use these nonsense things like you mentioned about these very, useless forms or useless awards or certifications or recognitions. that, you know, these firms ask the airlines to pay for them as well, or the airports to pay as well. You know,
but
so they can advertise them.
Yeah, I don't.
And so just to finish that, well, just let me I'll just finish and you can contend it. But I think that it doesn't add value. I then think that we've got this other point where we are seeing that regulators are seeing the option to potentially constrain foreign operators because of conditions placed on them that are not necessarily, or maybe the same condition placed on the home airline, because it's much easier as a home airline to do those long turns and those disinfections that are required. That's my point. So I think all very well. If something has a good, you know, sensible, logical explanation, then share it and let's work to put it in place. But if it doesn't, and it's not in keeping with the rest of industry or the rest of you know, the regulators or the broader, you know, macro level, then let's, you know, don't be afraid to question it.
Yeah, no, I Steve, I do agree with you. What I would just offer as an alternative, and I just want to field it, is that the option there of whether they should do it or not, and the fact that it's now turning into a commercial one-upmanship sort of thing, that's not good. That's not good. But the points all make sense. But what I think is better is for the industry to start having a collective, better PR exercise where it explains to the consumer, passengers, even employers, why something needs to be done and what the benefit is. And dare I say, I was just thinking about this as well. So many people are involved in so many different businesses around every aircraft that lands and takes off. And one of the things I'd like to see in the IFE, the in-flight entertainment, is a documentary about what goes on behind that safe trip on an aircraft, so that people get a feature. You know, they say, right, this is the accountant, this is the person who looks after livestock, who's got a veterinary. Because what we should be doing now is promoting the diversity and opportunity of our great industry, that, you know, don't just be thinking it's the people that you see on the check-in and then when you get on the aircraft and then when you see somebody rolling up with the bags, that is all that happens. There is so much behind this whole thing. Coming back now to the principle of the shall we say, the cleanliness or the hygiene awards, if people are told what should be done and why, and then it's being done to a great level, that all adds to the overall picture, but not for the sake of one-upmanship, just for a short period of time, because otherwise, just to finish the show, Steve, it could be LBW. And for those who understand cricket, leg before wicket, if the ball hits the leg directly before the wicket, you're considered to be out. So we don't want that. So, you know, I think we need to be better now at how we communicate. We need to be better how we ensure that there's the correct level of competency. Our compliance needs to be excellent, and then, please God, we'll continue to be in control of the business.
Well, let's hope that none of us aim to score a duck, because that would be pretty awful, much as my humor is today. Yeah, Chris, look, that's a good point to finish on. I think there's a lot of further sort of debate and possibility in this regard. I suspect this will not go away quickly, this very point, because there are so many, you know, it's such a lively kind of, you know, thread of discussion. The one thing I do think, I mean, you know, information, we're going to be careful what information the public get. We know that some of this information, too much information, is overload, and they abuse, or so they feel disabused. But what I do think is really important, you touched on an interesting point there about documentaries. I don't know about you, but even my friends that are not in the industry, I mean, heaven forbid, I do have some, in fact, majority. No, maybe not. But a lot of my friends do not work in aviation. Or they are fascinated by airport documentary, whether it be the custom sort of style ones of the Australia down under, you know, the customs guys, or in the US, or what I remember, the narrator was John Nettles.
Yes.
It was called Airport, simply called Airport. And it was about Heathrow, and it was fascinating, and that was what I loved watching. And then anything around that, you know, people get really interested in. So I think there is something to that. I would say that we've got a very good producer here that works with us on the show. But after today's open mic episode, I'm not really sure that he's it might be more like a duck under delivery rather than anything else. And that's the case.
But it's nice for anybody listening to now appreciate what his shopping list is like and what his chore list is like from his lovely wife who gave him some clear instructions on open air.
Well, we'll have the discussion on the bowling analysis with him later, Chris.
Yeah, but listen, lovely to see you again, Steve. And
Always.
God, it is right though. The weeks are flying past. It's incredible. But with every week comes huge amounts of change. And, I think everybody's going to be able to see everybody a lot sooner than people thought, especially this time last year. So good on it. Good on everybody that's been involved. And please, God, last little message, NHS, I think personally, so many people are going to care about what you've done. There's going to be a drive, whether it's from business or whether it's from government. Things are going to get better for people who have been on the front line. So I hope so. Anyhow, Steve, thanks. All the best, mate.
You never let me respond to that one. I know why.
Yes,
Thanks
I know exactly why, mate.
See you later.
That's it. Steve, weather stops play and there's not enough light.
Bring the covers.
That's it, mate. All right, take care. See you next week.